All right, good morning. Morning.
Good morning.
We're gonna get started. It's called to order, so we just call to order. We'll start with pledge of allegiance. I'll stand and face the flag.
The United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Here. Right here. Yep. Okay. You go here. Aaron, Lot. And also Kevin.
Here or here.
You.
Yeah, here.
That's a tight. So we have the agenda in front of us. Look for motion to approve the agenda. If I can put that in. Mr. Chairman, yeah.
If there are no changes, I move to accept the agenda as presented.
We have a motion,
That's second.
second by Kevin. All in favor? Opposed, same sign?
Yeah.
Okay, carry. We'll move right along. So I think you've had the minutes sent to us. Need approval of the minutes of the April 15th meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
I move that we accept the minutes as written.
Second by Gary.
Yeah, I approve that I move that we accept the minutes as written from the April meeting.
All in favor? Thank you. So.
This is the interpreter. We have some communication issues in the gallery, so I will copy sign. I will copy sign, so I just want to.
So we move right along to celebrations, Cheryl.
So our
It's good to see you here, by the way. I know that you've been back and forth with your mom, family member.
Thank you.
I hope things go the way God wants them to go.
Thank you. Appreciate the support. Okay, we were really excited. As you all know, our robotics teams went to the national competition. Our middle school robotics ended up scoring 20th in the competition, which earned them a spot in the finals. And at the finals, the team actually received 5th place. So we were really excited about that, especially considering the snow days that we had. They missed practices during that time. And then all of their robotic equipment was actually in Vestal in one of their robotics room. And we couldn't get in there initially for a while. And so they were set behind probably for about 3 or 4 weeks. And they weren't sure that their materials were even going to be usable or their robot. And then they also had their laptop with their plan for competition in it. And so they had to start from scratch and start that all over with just a couple of weeks to go before the competition. So we're really proud of them showing up and performing the way they did. They really show what perseverance was all about. So our hats are go off for those coaches and the staff that worked with them so diligently. And then our high school team, they competed in a very challenging field. They persevered through it and didn't give up. They really showed a lot of sportsmanship and drive. And then they had a great experience with the STEM coupled with the engineering design and process. So they learned a lot through it all. But they didn't place or anything, but they learned a lot, and just the experience in itself was great. So we also had Staff Appreciation Week, the week of May 4th. And that Monday, our staff were celebrated all week long with some appreciation, just so that we could show them the love that we have and the appreciation that we have for the jobs that they all do. So Monday consisted of a late morning snack wagon that was taken around to all the staff, and they got to choose what item they wanted. Tuesday, they were treated to breakfast. And Wednesday, the love continued with cupcakes and Coke. And Thursday, we had an ice cream bar for the staff, and they got to make their own sundaes. We dished out the ice cream to them, the administrative team. And then Friday, we showed them a lot of love by giving them a catered lunch, as well as dessert to follow. So they had a great lunch and socialized with one another. And it was just a great week to show them how much we appreciated them.
On the robotics thing, you said they placed fifth. What kind of robotics did they do?
What they do is they build and then program a small robot. And then they, the robot has to do certain things during the competition. So they have to get it to, go where it needs to go, and then pick up items and just do some different tasks.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Question. This is Kevin. Just to kind of give you an idea of what it could look like, for example, it could be this size of a robot. And it's a frame on wheels, for example. And then it could compact. And there's a program so that it compacts over something, picks it up, and then moves it and then puts it down into a specific location. So they have to make that do things that a robot can do. Obviously, it doesn't necessarily look like a person or a robot like we traditionally think of it. It's more of like a car type of thing, like a box. So and it can do maybe like a Tesla, I would say.
Thank you.
Oh, Waymo.
Because Waymo doesn't know where it's going.
Okay. That's a good description. I can visualize what it is.
It almost looks like a battery operated car without the body. So.
But they had to do some programming to make that happen. That's where
Yes.
the knowledge comes in.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay. Thank you.
And then the hands-on actually building it and putting it together and making it all connect and wired, and so they're learning a lot of everything in that process. Yeah. So, the last board meeting, I mentioned that Susan and I were going to be on a phone call with the governor's office and OSBM. And so we got on the call, and we were very excited to hear, and we know that it has a lot of other avenues to get through, but basically the governor and OSBM realized and recognized the work that we were doing here, to the point that the 4 additional funding items that we were requesting funding for, and those were the visual alarm system for our campus to be secure, retention of the 21 positions, $200,000 for transportation funds be reoccurring, and the educators 8% supplement, along with a 3% increase for educators to compete with area LEAs. The overtime pay that we have to pay our staff when they go over the 40 hours, as well as our shift premium pay, is what we requested. And so in the past, those items, the transportation funds and the supplements and overtime, that was all taken from DPI. they just put it in there, out of their bucket of money, when we needed those kind of funds. Since we've moved from DPI, we do not have those funds built into our, line item budget. And so we were requesting that those line items be put in there so that we could pay for those expenses. And the governor's office pretty much determined that they supported us in getting all of that. So everything that we asked for would be funded. And again, that's not extra money. That's money that would be specific to those purposes that we shared with them that we needed the money. So we had to write a report and justify the reason we needed those funds and how much we needed for those specific items. Now we just need to get the legislators to get on board as well, and we'll be in great shape. Okay, and now that's the close of my celebrations.
Question. This is Kevin. Kevin here. I'm curious about the funds for the repair to the upkeep of the buildings and everything.
So that is our capital projects, and that will be coming later in my superintendent's update.
Okay, perfect.
Right ahead, no questions. Next is Gary Farmer.
Yes, yes. Back on June 1st, excuse me, May 1st, I had an opportunity to go to the Council of Deafness and Hard of Hearing in Durham. And the keynote speaker was again a person from the Department of Public Instruction. And they were told to bring data about how many students DPI serves, and then a litany of other questions on data, how they were served, how they were assessed, and just so forth and so on. This lady, her name was Hutchins. She was good. She was smooth. She had everything polished. But when she finished her speech of almost an hour, there was no data. The only thing she said is she thought that maybe they were serving 1,200 kids in North Carolina. Then the questions started coming fast and furious. You were asked to bring data. Why don't you have data? But she tried to give reasons, why. And then questions became very specific. Do you have interpreters for every LEA, every school? No, but we have this wonderful thing called a VRI. And so for many of the people, they did not know what that was. And so she tried to explain it, but I'm not sure she was that well versed in it. So someone else stepped up that was deaf. And they said it's a box. It's basically like what you're seeing here, except it's a video remote interpreter. So you go online and then an interpreter comes in, it could be from California. And then that person interprets what's being said in the classroom. So honestly, this child is looking at a screen all day with no personal interaction with the teacher whatsoever. That is if it's working. That if the Wi-Fi is hooked up, and that is if it's a powerful Wi-Fi. If all those things don't come into place, the kid just sits there all day long. That was amazing. That opened a lot of people's eyes. And I know I'm still not a member, therefore I can't answer questions. But as soon as we went into recess, I was deluged by people that said, everybody at your school can sign or tries to sign on their level? Yes. Then why are y'all not promoting this over public schools? Lord have mercy. And I said, well, thank you for the confidence. I hope to be able to speak to this when I'm a member, but the person that's sponsoring us, Brian Turner, he was not there. And of course, the open session, or not open session, but the, what do they call it? The small session or, yeah, it had just started. And so he was not there. And so, I was stunned, really. I did not know. The other thing is, at that point in time, Tony Davis, who is over all the regional resource centers, he said, I would like to introduce you to an individual that's sitting right here. His name is Frank Griffin. Now, I'm going to read what he said. Frank Griffin will be responsible for developing the Child and Family Mentor Program, including developing the curriculum and positions for that program. Frank will be working through the summer and early fall to develop and get the program on its feet. Frank Griffin works at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro and represents the education deaf ed programs of the North Carolina Council of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. Meaning they used to deal with adults that left here about the barriers they had to face every day. Now they're going to take it down to the families and to the children in schools of barriers. And I think he picked out a beautiful time to introduce us to Frank, because we had just seen that the interpreter service is not there in the public schools. Then also, when Tony sent this out as a memo to everybody, he did say that he had captured other feedback from the community conversations about assessment funding. So now they're going to have it set up so the 7 regional centers, especially Morganton and us, can have where we can go and either videotape or one-on-one can be assessed, and they will pay for it if it is passed. So I was very, very excited about that. We left there and we rushed here to Wilson because we had a community conversation that night at 6 o'clock. We got through at 4, 80 miles an hour. That's what everybody's running. We got back here and they had already set up a cart system, which is like closed caption, but it's done on the spot. They had interpreters, reverse interpreters. They had 4 sets of interpreters here. And one by one, with confidentiality being held in the extreme, 35 people stepped forward that night and then all day the next day. And I was present the next day and I listened to all these barriers. I've been involved with the deaf for 56 years. I had heard some of the problems, but I had not heard some of the horror stories that I heard, especially on Friday night, about visits to the hospital, about ordering your medicine that you had to have, about the DMV. We've all got problems with the DMV, but the deaf gosh, what it takes to get a driver's license. And then it worked on down to basically ordering a pizza or going to a movie without captions and where they have to go, how far they have to drive. And I'm pretty hardcore, but I broke down and cried Friday when the lady, and I can't mention any names, I'm not allowed to. She said that she was pregnant and she went to the hospital because her water broke. And she's in the lobby and she can't get an interpreter and the VRI is not working and she's hurting so bad and she's going through pains of pregnancy and childbirth and cannot get an interpreter and lost the baby right there in the lobby. That tore me up. So I'm excited that he's going out all over the state. He's listening to these people. He's putting this all down. And then with the 3 legislators we have that go to every council meeting, hopefully, and especially now that they're going to be dealing with children. And one thing come up I never thought much about was there were several children that came. And they didn't know if they were allowed to speak or not because they didn't know about this new program. And these children that were CODAs, they lost their childhood or a large part of their childhood because they were drugged into the hearing world because they had to interpret for their parents that were deaf, with medical situations, with lawyer situations, legal situations. And quite honestly, they beg that the council establish more mental health for them as well as the deaf. And so Tony took all of that into consideration also. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
So Gary,
This is Kevin. Thank you for sharing that because I did have the opportunity to go to one of those meetings. And I explained my personal situation where the hospital, my wife was in the hospital and there was no interpreter that was available. And also the result was the blood pressure went sky high to a very dangerous level. But you know, the pressure was really high. And so there was no interpreter during that time. And so by the interpreter not being there, that doubled the stress. So, you know, through legal action, we had to go through legal action with that hospital. But they did contact me to work with me. But right now, we don't have those issues anymore. But at that time, VRI, that equipment was like a ray tube, like a tube TV, very old, very dated equipment. So that is far more common than you realize. It happens everywhere, every day. Children, you know, are brought to interpret for their parents. You know, it's like, hey, tell your mom, you know, they have cancer and they're gonna die. You know, a little boy, you know, said they had to go and ask their neighbor to come and help their mom. You know, things like that happen all the time.
What broke my heart also with the hospital we're talking about was here in Wilson.
I believe it.
Gary, you said that there was a number of students that were in DPI catchment that were all deaf.
They said, but here again, she didn't have it typed out. She didn't have it so it went up on cart. She just, it was like an air data. Oh, about 1,200. And I forgot to tell you this, when we came back in, I think it was Dr. Nutt, again, the pediatrician. He said, I want to make a motion right now that you have got, and when he was pointing the finger, he wasn't talking about her. DPI within 30 days presents to this board all the data we have asked you about. And it passed unanimous. So the pressure now is on DPI to give us this information so we'll know what we're working with. And let's see if it sticks. I don't know.
This is Kevin. Welcome to DPI's world.
We've been
It's
there.
not me.
Thank you, Gary. Yes.
We're gonna move right forward to superintendent's report.
And that's one of the reasons, in terms of what the information Gary shared, that's one of the reasons that we're really pushing our teachers and our students, to challenge them and push them to be the best that they can be, for who they are and what their abilities are, because we want them to be able to advocate for themselves. So self-advocating and, those independent skills are some things that we're really working on within the residential program, and we're going to continue to build that program. We also have a focus on self-advocating so that, we had a student who graduated 2 years ago, and he went for a job interview. And unfortunately, they did not have an interpreter. He didn't request one. And they got him to use his phone and go back and forth. And, unfortunately, his writing and reading wasn't very good. And so he didn't do well on that interview. So we want to make sure, we want to prepare our students that, no matter what situation they're in, they can access some type of language so that they can advocate for themselves. We've also designed some signs that we want to start putting out. We've got to print them off, but they're decals that you can put on your car or on your house window. And it says a deaf adult lives here, or a deaf child lives here, or deaf driver. So you can actually put them on your car. So if a police officer were to pull you over, they would know that you're not being disrespectful or insubordinate when you're not communicating with them. They'll recognize what's going on so that there's less of a chance of any issues occurring.
This is Sharon. I want to add to that. What is the deaf? I think it's it's a deaf. They have a deaf. It's like a flip chart that talks about if you're pulled over by a cop, how to communicate, that type of thing. But it's something that you can keep in your car. But also some kind of, I think it's a license sticker. Yeah, is you can put it on your rear view mirror. I'm talking about adding, there was talk about adding it to the license at one point. This is Kevin, yes, on the driver's license. You have the opportunity to let them know that you're deaf or not on the license. But I'm talking about the license plate. And so many people complain when that became an option because they're afraid that they will become bullied or identified and taken advantage of because they were deaf. So maybe, possibly they'd be pulled over. So we have to be careful about that because it could cause a reverse issue. And this is Kevin. It's to give them the option to do that if they want to or not. That was an option. It wasn't required. This is Sharon, but yeah, we were afraid it would increase the risk. Kevin saying, yeah, labeling, using it as a form of labeling people. So we didn't want to label it. That was the issue. Label the person they feel violated, you label you deaf or label you a hearing. So that was the issue, was the labeling. So it's a kind of a fine line. This is Sharon. We were afraid it would cause more risk to the deaf community. But so the agreement was to put it on the visor. And this is Kevin. Yeah, DSDHH provides deaf students, no, deaf people who want, you can contact DSDHH, but it is deaf people who want, it's a document, and you can have that document available if you are pulled over by the cops. You ask for an interpreter on that document, and so on and so forth, but the one that has the visor has a list of information. Yeah, that, I'm afraid of that. This is Sharon, I'm afraid of that. That sticker would be promoting that you're deaf. And I just don't think it's a good idea.
Well, it's one of those things where it's optional, you know, we wouldn't make anyone do it, but if someone wanted it, there's a nice little ENCSD emblem on it as well. And just something, you know, to let them make that choice if they wanted to put it on or not. Especially if, you know, if you're at home and there's a fire and the firemen came, you know, one of the things I thought about immediately when we had the fire here is, you know, someone that would be in that fire, you know, they call out to see if anyone's there. And if someone doesn't hear them, they can't, you know, respond in any way. And so they wouldn't know that someone was there. And so if you had something to indicate on your, you know, on the door or somewhere on your home that there was a deaf person in there when the firemen came, you know, they would at least be alert to that situation and hopefully be able to save that person's life. And so I think we always have to weigh safety and targeting, and always have to kind of balance that.
This is Sharon. I do want to add that I know that there's a sticker for babies, like baby on board. You know, I know they have things like that. For, is it autism? I'm not sure, but there's a rainbow color that they use to identify. Is it pink or rainbow? It's like a lanyard. Yes, rainbow. So I know that that's another way to identify if the person has autism. You know, it doesn't say I have autism, but it's just a, you know, a small inkling to allow them to be able to recognize. But, you know, in terms of deaf, having that on the window, I think the fear is that some communities where there's high crime in the area, if they say, oh, there's a deaf person in there, I could break in and they would never know. So that is one of the fears. This is Kevin, and let me add another side to that. I think that in terms of having a sticker on the house, a cat sticker, there's a cat sticker on the house, you know, say a cat lives here or a dog lives here, those types of stickers. Usually they're small, but maybe something that could indicate that you're deaf and only like an I love you or something like that. Sharon is saying this is, yeah, it's just a concern that it would be used in a negative way. Don't really know if a firefighter would know what the I love you symbol means.
But that's the problem with decals. So this is Kevin. You could make it, you never know, people might want it, so offer it, that's fine. But there, for example, that's not for me, but that's important to recognize.
So just moving on, our beginning teacher support program has been ran by Brenda Ulrich. And I know when I first came to the school, Brenda and I worked very closely with one another. There had been another program in place and we made a lot of changes to the program, and she was very open and willing to take on that challenge of recreating what they had established. And so she took it and ran with it, and the program has showed a lot of growth under her leadership. This is a program that the state requires us to present to the board, and the board must approve it before we can move forward with it for next year. And the beginning teacher program is a program that anytime you're new to teaching, you have to be in it for 3 years. There's an orientation you have to do. There's all kind of professional development you have to do, and you have to have specialized meetings and a mentor. And so Brenda works with our mentors and our BTs, provides professional development for the group so that they can take that information and become better and more effective in their instruction. And so I'm going to call Brenda up and have her present the plan to you.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to share this with you about our BTP. So this past October, the State Board of Education required 2 new additions to the BTP for all public schools for their BTP plan, for their PSP. So, and this is to present for your approval. This is related to public schools. They must create or update their BTP plan. And I did that a few years ago. And I have not made many changes since, but I did make some edits to some of the revisions. Thank you so much. So I did make a few edits to this plan. I revised some changes such as the principal. I changed the name, school director. I changed the name. Page numbers were all the same. Minor changes. The most important changes were 2 additions that were made. And before I do that, I want to let you know that I already talked with the BTSP regional director. And I actually sent it to her to make sure that this plan looked good. And so now I'm presenting it to you, the board. And like Cheryl just said, the area school board has to approve it. So you are the area school board, so I'm asking for your approval. I included it here in each of these packets. So this is the principal packet. So that way I just wanted to give everybody a copy so that you had access to all the information. I do have one form for Mr. Ken Jones as the chairman of the board. If you could look at that form, you have a different form than everybody else. And then if everybody agrees and approves it, if you could please give it to Mandy to present it to Cheryl. That way it can be approved, and then I can document that and file that away for the new teachers who are coming up this next school year. And I'll give you time to look it over, just a few minutes. And also just let me add, one moment. Dr. Ianucci asked me to share 2 points with everybody. Important requirements that we need to make note of. The first requirement is a documented process for identification and verification of all the BTs. They must be addressed. And then the ending of the recent graduation survey by the BT and the survey by the principal. So the survey by the principal during the BT, the new professor or the new teacher's first year. So it will renew annually for the next year from the end of the approval of the EPP, which is the educational preparation program. So like the college that the BT came from, then that will transfer to the next year. And then the survey will be given at the end of the application year. And then second, the plan for setup and the structure, the foundation of the health of the BT. So the induction process, teachers with fewer than 3 years of experience, no matter if they are licensed, no matter the license type, no matter of the pathway that is chosen with the license. So if it's a temporary license, if it's a residential license, if it's a beginning teacher professional license, they are all required to participate in the NCBTP for 3 years. Those are the 2 points that are new updates within this program that the State Board of Education has asked us to add for all BT programs across the state. So I do have that information documented and prepared. I wanted to get approval from you first before I made extra copies. And then once that's the case, then I can make new copies for new teachers who are coming next year whenever we receive them into our program. So again, I'm just asking for you to survey this information, approve it, and then I can give you time. If you need more time, totally fine. Look that information over. You can talk about it and then give it to Mandy. And then you can make any adjustments that you think are, or edits that you think are needed, and let me know. And then Mandy, if you have my email address, you can reach out to me what the board decides to do, if that's okay. Any questions?
Due date.
It's due by October. I was hoping to complete it before was out on summer break, before we leave for summer break. But if you need more time, that's totally understandable.
This is Kevin. This is the beginners teachers.
Yes,
Okay, so will you be adding 2 new curriculum?
yes. And this is Sharon. It looks good.
This is Kevin. Most of the additions, they're related, are not related to deafness or deaf children themselves.
This is Brenda. No, nothing. It's very broad edits. This is related to all public schools. Ms. Iannucci, do you want to add anything?
Sure.
It's- Yeah, and I'm happy to provide that point about communication skills in a supplement in the back of the program plan. So there are tips for educators for teaching deaf from K-12 to university. So it's 25 pages, and there's an FAQ that I can add that's in there as well. And then also I have a copy from Lauren Clerk, the Deaf Education Center. They have tips for registering your deaf child and student, and I have that copy added at the end as well. Hopefully they will support that being given out here, especially with deaf ed. A lot of the deaf ed already have that. Hopefully they have that knowledge as well in deaf ed programs, but I am more than willing to support that need. Sharon?
This is Sharon. So the tips, they're really expectations.
Correct.
So it sounds as though you can or you can't. So I understand it probably should be worded, these are expectations, so they will know what the culture is. Is that
Correct.
possible to make those changes?
So the beginning teacher plan is basically a program that every public school.
Hold on a second for communication purposes. Oh, online. We need Kevin said we need to make sure the interpreter is visible for the online.
The beginning teacher plan, it's a requirement across the state for all teachers in public schools. And since ENCSD is a public school, we have to follow along with that as well. It is a requirement for 3 years that the teacher participates in this program. So every professional development and the work that we do with our teachers isn't necessarily going to be in this, but this is the plan. And each month, whenever Brenda meets with the teachers, she's talking about effective strategies and communication and giving those teachers that support that they need to be able to work with our students. And so her training of those teachers revolves around our population. But this plan isn't necessarily going to dive into that. It's just going to be kind of open-ended, very vague to meet the requirements of the state in terms of the writing component of the program. At the end of those 3 years, the principal then has to recommend that teacher to go from a beginning teacher's license to a professional license. If the principal does not recommend, then the teacher cannot get that professional license. And all the steps, the orientation, the first year, there's certain components of the program. The second year, there's additional components. And the third year, there's others. And so they have to check off all the boxes and have to be able to give that effective instruction in order to get the professional license then. So the work that she does, is going to be a little bit different than what you see written in here.
Mr. Chairman,
This is Sharon. It's very, very clear. Thank you very much, Brenda. Thank you.
Gary speaking. I appreciate Mr. Alford wanting to do this in a timely manner, but this is the first time we have seen this. And we'd be foolish not to refer or defer to a man that spent his whole adult life training teachers, and he's right here on this board. So I would love to hear from Dr. Dolman at this time on his feelings about this.
Well, I think it is a good idea to take a look at it and maybe bring it back at the next meeting. I think. So, and I would think, Brenda, that would be okay with you.
This is Brenda. That's totally fine. It's not due till October. So I'm assuming you're going to meet again before October, correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay, yeah. So it should be no problem.
Although I may not be.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
That a grandchild is going to be born around that time that we're having the next meeting. So this is Sharon. You have to read it and then share your opinions. That way we can comment on your opinions whenever we meet the next time.
Any other questions?
Thank you. This is Kevin. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry.
You're welcome.
Rob?
This is wrong. The only thing I might suggest is that at the same time we're reviewing this, that our attorney take a look, particularly at the ethical section, to make sure that our bylaws and so forth are in agreement with what this refers to as ethics requirements that are in here. I think they are, based on what I've looked through and saw, but still be a good idea for council to take a look at that.
100% happy to do that.
One of the other things that I forgot to mention is Brenda actually meets with another counterpart from another school. And they compare they'll switch them and read each other's to make sure that they've hit all the components that are required in it. So there's a lot of eyes that get on this. So it's always great to have additional eyes.
Any other questions? Brenda, thank you.
All right, and next up, I'm gonna bring up Ryan Strickland. And Ryan is, you've met him before. And he is from Uter Construction. He is our capital projects coordinator, or with the company that supports us in that area. And Ryan's going to give us an update on all the capital projects. It's been an interesting year, to say the least. And we've had to get a little bit assertive these last few weeks, especially. So I'll turn this over to him and let him update you on everything.
I'm going to start with the two easy projects first, and we'll handle the difficult one last. So we actually, last time I was here, we approved a contract to do the massive building roof replacement. That was First Construction in partnership with Raymond Engineering. We've gone through state construction for a contract that should be done and set. They've agreed to fees, which is a non-bill contract. And we've gone through an advanced planning approach and getting the type of roof we need within our budget. We're well within our budget. So we're going to begin the process of getting approval from state construction from a code perspective, and we hope to start August 1st time date, maybe middle of August when material could be here. So that was actually going very well with the contractor designer. The second one was the McAdams. We received funding for that one. This is like Cheryl requested. We advertised for that. And we had 2 unqualified people submit. We added a little bit of additional funding to that project to make it more attractive. We've done some reach out for other contractors, and that's currently being re-advertised today for 30 days. And I'll interview if we have fun of people. But I feel pretty good about who we'll have submit, and we'll just let the contractor next time we meet. And the difficult one, the campus repair and renovation project. We had an issue with the fire. I think everybody's well aware of. We've gone through some repairs. I think the contractor initially responded pretty well. There's some outstanding items for air handling units that need to be replaced before we can really make a call of like, hey, is the building safe again? We've been told mid-June those parts will be here. It would be replaced. Once that's done, we'll have an air quality test done within the building and we'll be able to reassess then. We are doing some contractual things in the direction of state construction, holding payments, holding them accountable for what happened. Whether it was their fault or not, they were the contractor on site. They were supposed to manage the project appropriately, and the school is not involved in this. So we've worked through those things, had some discussion with Cheryl, things that need to be replaced and be done better. We're addressing those this Thursday. And they're going to be with the team minutes on it.
It should be signed. Questions?
And next up is Simone with some of our HR updates.
Good morning. So for the HR portion, we have a new hire that will be joining us in the business office starting on Tuesday. She is going to be our new business services coordinator. As you know, Susan's been operating as a kind of team of one a little bit here lately. She has one other employee there in the office, so we're excited to have her join us on Tuesday. We have 2 reference checks going on after 2 interviews that we conducted for an elementary teacher and for a middle school teacher. So those are in the process right now as well. We've conducted interviews last week and interviews this week, and we'll have an interview this afternoon and tomorrow as well for our internal auditor and a guidance counselor here for the school. Teacher contracts have been reviewed and completed per the superintendent's recommendation. So I'll be presenting those later on this evening to the board for review and approval. And that's kind of all I have right now. It's a lot going on in HR. We stay busy 24/7. As you know, I just received some help last week, so that's going great. But any questions at all at the moment?
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Sharon. You said 2, you were in the process of hiring 2 elementary teachers?
Elementary teacher and a middle school teacher. And right now we're at the reference check. So I don't want to confuse hire with
Do they sign?
say it again, I'm sorry.
Do they sign?
Yes, they do.
Both of them have.
Both of them?
Just one. The elementary teacher, I believe, is that correct? For signing ASS. Do they both? Okay, yes, they both do. That's correct.
Both of them have to fit credentials. I mean, are they certified?
Final. Just Kevin. I agree with you, Mr. Sharon.
So there aren't very many graduates from UNCG, but when we can get them and they fit the profile and we feel like they'll be successful here, we do try to hire them. So that's definitely one of the programs that we can find some teachers, but they just don't have enough of a program. The program's not that big, so we get a couple each year.
You know, this is slightly off. But I wonder if there's a way, I mean, I've heard you say, Cheryl, that in order to get licensed, like some of these people who do not have licensure, they have to get licensed through North Carolina. Is there a way that we could lobby? I mean, I'd be happy to write a letter, I don't know to whom, because there are other programs online in different states that really are pretty good programs, sir.
And I've heard that's been an argument for a long time.
Well, it just seems like, it's just like the state of North Carolina is not slapping our hands, but just holding us back for absolutely no reason. And is there a way that we could lobby, or, you know, if you let me know who to contact, not that I have any influence, but I would be happy to do what I could, because it's really dumb when, you know, qualifications for deaf education are not required to the knowledge base of the state of North Carolina. They're, you know, it's a big country.
Right.
And that's a lot of the issue, because we have people who are credentialed in other states, but they still have to do the criteria to meet here.
But it's kind of nuts,
Yes.
you know?
I'll agree since you said it.
We're hoping that it'll get better, because right now legislation, I believe it was just approved that teachers from other states that are certified in other states will also be certified in the state of North Carolina. There will be reciprocity
Yeah.
with every state, and I know just coming down from Massachusetts, Massachusetts standards were a little bit higher in terms of like the special ed and all of that. But when I came down, it took me like 18 months to try to get my license because they didn't want to just give reciprocity between the two states. And
Well, let me know if there's anything I can.
Okay. Any other questions?
DPI licensure. DPI licensure or DPI special ed.
I'm happy to talk to either of them because we have connections with this
Yes.
sections. If you think that would help.
Yeah, this is Kevin. One of the big issues is related to the praxis, praxis monster. And I know that we need to look and see if there's some things that could be, that are possibly within that could be a barrier, especially for deaf and hard of hearing. Because there's a lot of things that do not relate to deaf and hard of hearing. And so I know that the praxis is very, very biased when it comes to public school, public education compared to deaf education. So I know that many people, you know, when they pass the test, especially there's a specific area that focuses on hearing, being able to speak and being able to hear on the praxis. So that is where it needs to be reassessed.
Just Cheryl speaking. The praxis is not required for DHH. That's why the 2-year commitment for the program is in place, because the deaf community advocated strongly with DPI in the state to make that change from the praxis to a program that was more friendly to all. But in doing so, they put another barrier that makes it more difficult because you have to spend money to go to that program, and it costs a lot more than a praxis test would have. Yes.
Just add as a nuance, Kevin, roughly, I'm thinking about this, roughly 30 years ago, they eliminated the praxis in deaf education, which is something that if you went through a deaf education program, you ought to be able to pass. But what happened then was they did not eliminate praxis. It's been a while since I was at Barton, but basically the reading, the content area, reading, math, etc. And it's those areas that are stopping many people from getting in. So it's nothing specific to deafness. It is like for reading comprehension, reading a paragraph, you've got a certain amount of time, you have to answer the questions indicating that you understand exactly what's in that paragraph, et cetera. And that's what's holding not only deaf people out, but a lot of our hearing students at Barton could not pass it and had to change their major because of it. So that's the issue but it's not specific to deafness. It's specific to just basic literacy skills and math as well. So it's a problem. It's a barrier, but if you have a college degree, you are exempt from the praxis. So if you come in here with a bachelor's degree in social work, and we've had students at Barton who couldn't pass the praxis, and so they would major in something else, and then they would get a job as a teacher. The praxis one would be waived, and they could then proceed. But it's a problem, and it's been a problem for a long time.
That's actually a problem across the country. You know, when we first started a shortage of teachers, North Carolina actually increased the requirements that same year, that we were having difficulty finding teachers. And so that made the pool even less. And that happened like around 2013, I think, is when they increased the requirements in terms of what you scored on the test to become a teacher.
Thank you.
I ran a resource room at Elm City Middle School for 7 years after I left here. And since I was dealing with all sorts of disabilities, they made me go back and get 3 certifications. I think one was LD, one was autism, and something else. And I had to pass 3 practices as old as I was. But you get 3 times to do it. And then after the 3rd time, you can't get a license. But what really I was afraid of is I'm not very good in math. And some of the basic practices is because you've got to be able to teach it to these kids. You had math problems thrown in with the practice. So I understand you do the best job you can to make them teachers of the deaf. But when it comes to the praxis, it's very, very difficult. And I can't imagine, I'm not putting down, but I can imagine how maybe a deaf person would have problems in that area because so many hearing people have problems. And I know Brenda Aldrich has gone to ECU and got her, I think, her master's degrees, and there's no telling how many she had to do, but she's an amazing person anyway, so.
We had her at Barton's. Brenda was a great student.
And I think, if I understand right, if I may interject, if I understand right, one of the things Kevin was asking about was kind of accommodation on the praxis. If you had a deaf or hard of hearing teacher or prospective teacher, right? So it's not just the test, but if you have folks that are deaf, they're going to take the praxis, how are they accommodated on the praxis so that their opportunities to pass it are? Is that fair, Kevin? Was that one of the things you asked about?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, next up is going to be our business and finance report, and that is with Susan.
I need to stand and,
You need a podium?
no,
Okay.
just tell me where.
So you look beautiful right there.
Right.
On TV, wow, amazing.
Good morning. No chair today, so I'll stand. I haven't been here in a few meetings, to present and share with you, primarily because I've just been stuck behind a desk, working and trying to do all the things required for business and finance of a state agency. And it is a lot. I'm thankful for my past experience in state government to rely on because it has been very beneficial. But today I just wanted to share with you a few updates. For those of you who are interested, in your packet, I believe is just a high level overview of a budget report. But we are nearing the end of a state fiscal year. the budget year ends on June 30th. So I just wanted to share with you, how where we look, how we look as far as spending our state appropriated and, grant dollars for this year. As you recall or know, we have not had a comprehensive state budget for this entire year that is about to end. So it has been challenging. Do we spend money or do we conserve and save money? Do we have 21 positions that are going to be eliminated? Or do we fill them because we have significant needs for staff? So we've been dealing with competing priorities, not having clear direct guidance from OSBM this year, in addition to being our first year as a state agency. So I just want you to have an awareness that there have been several challenges and hard choices and decisions that we've been faced with. However, we've been successful in meeting the primary needs, and as you can see here, of course, we spend the greatest amount of money on personnel resources. Okay, that is the primary portion of our budget. That is also where we will lapse or not spend the most money simply because of our vacancies. Okay, so I just want to make sure that's clear. We have about 20 positions vacant currently. A budget proposal from last year recommended the elimination of 21 positions. Okay, we need those positions. Yeah, Kevin, we need those positions. But because they have been vacant for the majority of the year, those salaries that have lapsed, we will revert. Now, the state is looking and needs appropriations reverted from all agencies, and they are asking us about every 2 weeks what our reversion estimate is. Okay, we're going to revert about $1.5 million. Okay, that is similar to what was reverted last year. I came February 28th. But that is, while we were under DPI, we reverted about 1.5 million last year. Okay. But now if you look down below personnel in the other line items, we're going to spend all of our budget there. Okay. I just want to, make sure there's some transparency there. One of our big,
Yes, just for a second. And if you recall, whenever the state told us that they may do away with those 21 positions, they also told us that we could not spend that money that was connected to those positions.
yes,
And so, at the very last moment, we did get, basically a direction from OSBM that if there was a critical need, that we could purchase it, to go ahead and purchase it because we're so late in the year. So whenever we experienced the fire, we did get smart boards for those rooms that didn't have them, that we moved teachers into so that they could be effective in their instruction. So if there was a dire need for something, we have used some of those funds, but the money that we're reverting is the money that we were told not to spend.
we have also replaced computers, or purchased a lot of computers that will be replaced over the summer to keep up with new technologies.
School buses.
That was next. Okay.
So you're jumping the gun there, Kevin.
I was gonna say that, we have 2 new school buses on order that should get here before the end of this fiscal year. They were on the lot when we placed the order. So, they had to do some decaling, a few specific things, but we should have those next month. And just so you know, that is spending $200,000 that DPI transferred to us one time for transportation. as Ms. Sanucci said, we requested to make that recurring funding annually, $200,000 for transportation. Okay? So we're gonna spend our 200,000 this year.
Curious speaking, did we ever replace our big bus, our activity bus? Is that in the works?
We did not, and I'll let Ms. Sanucci back me up here, but we determined that for ease of access and some other things, with our student population, that the smaller bus would suffice, and if we needed two, we would take two. Do you want?
Yes, so because we serve 54 counties and we're hoping to grow our population, we were concerned that, with the usage of the big bus right now, it may get used twice a year and that's it. And so we figured that it would make more sense financially, because the smaller buses, it's easier to go in a different direction. If you need to add a student west of, an area that you don't really serve right now in terms of transportation, it would just be more feasible to do that with the minibuses. And we could get two for basically, a little bit more than the cost of one. And that would give us more flexibility in terms of what we may need in the future.
We don't have a football team anymore, so that's, the big bus is not really needed. Okay, so, say it again, the white bus, will it be the school bus? Will it be white, or will it be school colors? White. The painting of the bus, or will it be the blue letters on a white bus, or do we know the coloring of the bus? Is it gonna be green and yellow?
Same as the ones now. I think they're white with green lettering.
Okay.
This is so funny. I got a phone call from Sandy, the chairman in Morganton. She was very upset. She said, the rumor is you are having all of your minibuses wrapped with pictures of hornets and a hive on it. And I assured her, and I asked Iannucci first if I had done that. And she said no. So I reported back to Morganton that no, we didn't have a bus that was wrapped with hornets.
And I don't recall even a conversation or discussion about that as a possibility.
That was the rumors, you know.
Mr. Sharon, that's the hearing rumors.
No, that was the rumors from Morgan, because they never want us to get ahead of anything. True story. No, Sandy don't play. Okay.
And as Simone said, we do have another staff person starting in the business office next week.
I was surprised you didn't jump up and down when it was announced.
We need another person, but we're thankful for one more. Any questions?
Great job. This is Kevin. Great job.
Thank you.
And Mr. Sharon, just to echo that, thank you.
I just want to thank Susan and Simone for the work that they do. We put in some long hours and, but we're getting it done, and I couldn't ask for two better people to do it with, that's for sure. Glad to be here.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Gary.
Gary.
We trained you well.
Yes, you did.
There's you.
Okay, so next, we are in testing round for our academic program right now. And they are taking the North Carolina state testing for EOCs and EOGs. So they started that right around last month or last week for the EOCs and EOGs, and then the work keys for CTE testing that was done earlier as well. So we should be finishing up the end of this week, and then the only testing that we would do next week would be anyone that needs to make up testing because they missed it. You have to have a 95% or better completion rate, or else you get some points deducted in your report card, which we will be held, this will be the first year that we're held accountable. Which leads me into, some of the summer work that we will be doing as an administrative team. We'll be putting together, that accountability plan. The state wanted a little bit more information, than what that short period of time would allow us. We did put a plan together and submitted it, but they wanted all the research that would go into it and to the effectiveness of those tests that we were recommending that we be allowed to use. So we will put that together, and write that research paper this summer. It's been a long time since I've done that. The NC Collaboratory update, as you know, ECU received that award, and we've been working with them. They actually came on campus to talk and interview some of our teachers and some of our staff. And what we did was basically just give them a sample of each department, and the departments that have a larger population, there were a few more chosen from those realms, just to kind of make it across the board even in terms of representation. And so Rebecca and Kristen are the people that are heading it up. And so they were the ones that came and interviewed the teachers. They also interviewed some of our some of our students. Unfortunately, we only had 4 parents respond and give permission for their children to have those interviews. And then since our seniors are 18, they went ahead and interviewed them if they were willing to be interviewed. Yes.
Would you remind me what the basic purpose of the study was?
So unfortunately, I don't know where the communication gap was initially, but the information was shared from the NC Collaboratory to the colleges and universities in the state. And they had to put an application together, and the legislation made it very clear within the legislation that they wrote that it was kind of reviewing all aspects of the schools, from finances to HR to teaching, instruction, to residential, just kind of doing an overview of everything and seeing what the schools were doing and if there were any recommendations for improvements or changes that were needed. And unfortunately, all that information didn't get relayed at first. And so the 3 applications that were given for us, for instance, they were very specific. One wanted to study AI, one wanted to study like the instructional model and the curriculum and the organizational model. And then the other one had to do with communication and so forth. And so none of them really did that deep dive that the legislation was written to do. So then after they were chosen, NC Collaboratory went back to the 3 schools, because each school for the deaf and blind, we all have a different college or university that's working with us. And so the Collaboratory went back to them and said, well, this is what you actually need to do now. It needs to be more extensive. And so they had to kind of revamp what their original ideas were and pull other people on board, because like Kristen's background is EC, Rebecca's is IT and education. And so they had to pull in the business office folks or the business department as well to do that part.
So were they specifically looking at like schools, special ed schools, or?
It's just the 3 schools for the deaf and
just the 3
deaf blind. Yes, just
So-
us.
Whoever, the legislature wanted the 3 schools to be kind of evaluated in a kind of a deep dive way, is that right?
Yes, correct.
It's not necessarily,
It's not negative. It's not negative.
okay, it's not negative. Okay.
Yeah. It's, I mean, talking with ECU, I just had a phone call last week or a Teams call, and we met with, Rebecca and Kristen brought in the department chair for education and the department chair for mental health. And so during that conversation, because I had already spoken with Rebecca, Kristen, and then Dan is the person that's over them, and about what we'd like to do in addition to this grant. So you have this grant, it has a specific purpose. They're working on that. They're moving forward with that. But then there's all these other ideas that we're sharing and projects that we're considering for the future. And some of those are, one of them is we've had a 3-year contract with UNC Health for our health center, where our nurse can contact them if we need them, but it's all been on the computer online. So the doctor, does a checkup and a physical right there from the screen to the student. And so there was no personal contact. And so what we were hoping is that we would be able to get, work with them and get a team that would actually come in at least once a week and be here in person so that they could have, a more, a deeper, so to speak, health, checkup. And, or if there was really something wrong with them, they could really get a good feel of what was going on. So, in addition to that, ECU is actually looking for funding for that program as well. So they're working with some of the doctors that they are affiliated with, and some of the donors that they're affiliated with to see if we can get that funded as well. It costs, the UNC contract costs $37,000 or right around there a year. And unfortunately, we did not have, this is the 3rd year of it, and we did not have the equipment or the knowledge that we even had this program until right before school started. So we ordered the equipment so we could use it. And unfortunately, we have not got our money's worth out of it because not knowing that it even existed. I guess it was a contract that DPI negotiated and gave to all 3 schools. And for some reason or another, during that time, the materials weren't purchased to do it. And we even, we've done sports physicals this year with it. But last year, I remember, before Dr. Hanley left, the AD was requesting permission to take the students to get health physicals, and that was declined, with no knowledge that this program even existed. But so we're kind of looking at that. We're also looking at establishing a DHH program at ECU. Apparently they had one in the past, but that program is no longer in existence. And so they do have a couple of DHH students, and they, want to look at that program and see. And we've had students like Brenda and some others go from here to there in the past, but not in the recent past. And so they really want to explore what opportunities they have for our students, as well as planning. And it's, it's one of those things in education, the clock moves slowly. And so you have to get all these approvals and you have to find the funding for it and everything. But so it would be 3 or 4 years down the road. But what we're hoping to do is create a pipeline where they can actually train teachers, give them the ASL classes, have them where we need them, kind of like UNCG does, but have another option. And then have a pipeline of, staff that are qualified to come here and teach. They would have the ASL, the DHH background. And they said that although they're not seeing an increase in their student enrollment, they are seeing an increase in students that want to work with special populations or very specific populations. So, they think that by developing the program that they would be able to, get students there. We are also looking at one of the issues that we have is we need our teachers who are not DHH certified. And so in addition to that program where they'd come here, the students would come here and get the work experience and do their student teaching and so forth. We would also hopefully be able to send our teachers there to get their DHH. And I'm also exploring the opportunity for them to get life work credit towards that degree because they've worked here. So it's, we're looking not only the here now, but the future of EMCSD. And, anytime, especially, with the teachers, we try to get the teachers that have ASL skills and know it already, but we're very limited. This program for UNCG, we have one of our teachers doing it right now. There's 4 teachers or 4 potential teachers. I'm not sure if the other ones are teachers currently, but there's 4 people in that program. And, every year they may graduate 1 to 4 students. And, we have several high school teachers who've come from that program. We have several teachers from the elementary program that have come there. And the one year that we didn't get somebody, she went somewhere else, but now she's here. So, we try to do that when we can. Some people want no part of coming to this side of the state. They're happy where they are, but if they are willing, and they're appropriate, but they're not always appropriate either. We have to screen them when we interview them. A perfect example, we were having an interview one day and we asked the candidate what the relationship was like with her professors or what her professors would say about her because she had never worked before. So we couldn't ask her what her current supervisor would say. So we said, what would your professor say about you? And the response was, well, we have a love-hate relationship. So not everybody is appropriate for coming here. But yeah, so that is definitely our ultimate goal. So we're working closely with ECU and hopefully we'll create that pipeline for the future.
We, ECU, in my 39 years here, has not had a deaf ed. So if they had one, it must have been in the early 80s or whatever. But when Michelle was here, she actually contacted me about doing some kind of a reciprocal thing. And we actually worked it out. I mean, I went to our administration and they said, yes, we can contract for these number of courses or whatever. But I never heard back from Michelle. So, it was dropped. But this problem that you mentioned it's not a new problem. But it's made worse by the fact that Lenore Ryan's program is no longer here and Barton's program is no longer here. So that the only game in town or in the state is UNCG, and that's a problem.
Yes.
This is Kevin. I know that ECU, their rehabilitation program for vocational rehabilitation counselors is now defunct. So they moved it under substance abuse counseling program. But the program itself, it folded. And I think this was about, they have 39 programs recently that they have deafblind. They have a deafblind program at ECU. And I don't know if it's still going or not, I'm not sure, but it's a certification program. But the rehab counselors program for the deaf and hard of hearing was more general. But it's now under the mainstreamed under other classes.
It's a problem with numbers. I mean, colleges look at enrollments.
Yeah, I know that here in North Carolina, the number of students in the system in general has decreased to I think 170,000, I believe, somewhere in that ballpark.
Let me I'll do this in 45 seconds. The problem we always had with recruitment is that students want to work at places like ENCSD. I mean, they want to use sign language. And the reality is, among our students, and really nationally, they're going to work in mainstream environments where they may or may not be using sign language. It's like, well, there's an interpreter. You're there to help support a child, but you're not going to be doing ASL all day in a classroom. So these kind of programs are rare. And so that's what hurt Bart tremendously, because when I started, the programs were mainly self-contained and you could sign all day, even if it was a public school program. But when that changed, it was astounding to me when Wake County Schools, Raleigh, got rid of every one of their center programs. So Athens Drive High School, Martin Middle School, all these schools that had programs. Now it's you go to your individual schools and it's the same problem Gary was talking about of having some interpreter on a screen somewhere. So it's a general program, but that has hurt enrollments in deaf ed programs. Sure, I went over my.
And I think one of the issues too is you don't have enough people that are going in education in general. And so, you know, when you have like a area of specialty, that makes it even harder. But hopefully that'll start changing if, you know, if the legislation can, our legislators can kind of improve the pay for teachers and make some changes. That would definitely help because, you know, I think in the past few years, teachers have felt like they are not respected, and that's really deterred a lot of people from going into the field. So hopefully we're on a different path now. So our upcoming events, we have on May 29th, we have our yearbook dedication. And that is a wonderful event. If anyone would like to come and see what the yearbook is, who the yearbook is being dedicated to, and the staff present it, and you can actually see the students who are working on it. That's when I say the staff, it's the yearbook staff. And Kate works with this program and does a great job with our students. So that'll be held on May 29th. On June 3rd, we have our field day. And the students will have a lot of fun doing different games and water activities and things of that nature. Special lunch will be served that day. June 4th, we will have the end of the year awards. And we're doing something a little different this year. In the past years, it has been, we've had 2 awards. One was for the high school, or one was for the seniors, and one was for everybody else. And so we combined that so that the younger students and the younger high school students could see the seniors also get their awards, and be able to celebrate them, especially since we're still small enough where we can combine it to be one. So we thought, you know, we could help motivate some of those younger students that, you know, this could be them later on. And then June 5th is our graduation at 11 o'clock. So we have 5 seniors graduating and for the class of 2026. And we actually have one who has been accepted and has decided to go to Gallaudet. So we're really excited about that. The other ones, I believe, are still in the process of making their decisions. So hopefully I can share that later on. And then we are, you know, at the end of our school year almost. We have 11 more days of school, or as I always say with the younger children, we have 11 more wake-up days of school. And it's been a busy year, but it's been a good year. You know, we've had to work through some things and we had some challenges for sure, but we're pulling through it. And we are almost completed with our first year as a state agency, which brings on a whole different component. And, you know, when I explained it to our staff not too long ago, I shared with, if you look on an LEA website, you will see central office staff and you will see about 30 or 40 people on their list that just work in central office. And with a state agency, like DMV or DOT, you have all that staff who like do the reports and do everything that they're required to do on an administrative level. They have a lot of administrators. But you look at ENCSD and we have a very small team. Our administrative team is very small. And we have to do both the central office work as well as the state agency. And so it does create a lot of work, and the team is wonderful. They're willing to put the work in and the time in that's needed. So we're very fortunate with that. And we're gearing up for next year. We have to submit our Cognia accreditation mid-year update, or mid-time, I should say. So accreditation is good for 5 years. Because there were some components that were missing when I first got here and I wrote the report. We do have to give the update for that 2.5-year mark. And so that'll be due, I believe it's at the end of September. So I will share that information with the board before I submit that for approval as well. And then, we also have to work on that accountability plan and do that research. And hopefully we'll have the budget and we'll be able to get our security system in place, our alarm system for emergencies and such. So we've got a busy summer. I have about 13 things on my board that are pretty big projects that need to be done between now and the start of the school year. So we're working towards getting ready for next year as we close out this year. Any questions?
Graduation is June 5th.
June 5th at 11.
There are invitations for you. They have, they were on the front of your folders.
Oh. Thank you, Mandy.
Please disregard the RSVP date. It was, didn't get changed from last year. So if you're available to attend, if you could just shoot me a quick email, I will make sure that that gets forwarded where it needs to get forwarded.
And we would also like to have the board set on the stage this year. So if you are coming, please let us know so we can make sure that chair is there for you.
It's a shame I can't make it. Yeah, I have previous plans.
Good for that. We have no public interest. Correct. We're going to move on to new business. It's a continuation.
The first one is the board retreat we were talking about for training. So basically, I believe you have to do 10 hours of training each year. And so we weren't sure how many of you were able to accomplish that this year. And we were looking at some topics that we felt would be important for the board. And Rachel actually does board training. So we thought it would be a good thing for us to maybe look at June and July and see if there was a day or two that we could do a retreat and get some of that training. And then you guys will have the hours that you would need to fulfill that requirement.
I know it's a time commitment, but I think a board retreat is a good way to have more expansive conversation. It's a public meeting. We have to open it. You can have a closed session, but the retreat itself is a public meeting, but we can do discussions about board governance. We can talk about, a lot. We can talk about fiscally looking at your budget, budget priorities, or it's just really more like a work kind of session and a development for the board. For the board's training. I really, obviously it's up to the board, but if you haven't had one, it's a good way to get some cohesion on the board, to get some
It's
joint
required.
agreement,
It's required.
and the professional development is required for
So
the
we,
leaders.
Can I make a suggestion? Oh, go ahead, Dave.
we had to do this, like Gary and I went a year ago last January. And that was, I guess, initial board.
New member board training.
Yeah, welcome, but this is different and you have to do 10 hours a year. It's a lot.
You have to continue to update your training, yes.
But I don't think we got that number of hours when we went. So.
Well, we went 2 days.
I know, but I don't think we got 10 hours worth. I don't know how it's counted.
This is Kevin. I have no hours.
But ethics is a huge part of it.
Yeah, conflicts of interest. I mean, we can cover all the big stuff. We don't, if it's easier for people, and I don't want to volunteer anybody, but if it's easier for people, I can do a weekend, you know, if it's easier for people to dedicate part-time certain weekends or whatever works, I can do, you know, I'm just letting you know, I can accommodate whatever schedules. Or I can send you somebody else to do the training, and if you want someone else to do the training, doesn't have to be us. But I want to make sure, one, you get the training, but two, there's a lot of value that comes out of those retreat sessions.
This is Sharon. July and August is super busy. My son is getting married and August is super busy, but June possibly. After the board meeting, maybe it's an afternoon, that would be better, or the day before the board meeting, either before or after the day, because it's a long drive for me to get here. So if we can work it out that way, that's my suggestion, but the weekend is not the best time. But I am open to Zoom training that, Kevin's going, But, yeah, if it's after the board meeting, maybe 4 hours training before or after, that would work best, but not in the month of July or August. Yeah, June is fine. This is Kevin. I think the board is scheduled for June 17th. So I'm available 16th, 17th, and 18th. I'll be available.
We can meet in the maternity ward of the Wake Forest Hospital or whatever, because grandchild due June 16th. Yeah.
I could teach. I had to do it 12 years.
It's whatever science.
So
Like about early August.
I'll be out. This is Sharon. Italy. I'll be in Italy.
I'm gonna go with Sharon.
I'm with you.
I'm going to be, yeah.
This is Sharon. I won't be in North Carolina. I'll actually be upstate with my son. So for the wedding during that time. So won't be in North Carolina all 2 months. So yeah, August is out. This is Kevin. July, I'm on vacation. Yeah, July. The end of August, possibly. I'm going on a cruise to Alaska. Can I go with you, Kevin?
But maybe
I put you in my computer.
September or something like that.
This is Sharon. I'll be on a trip. I'll be somewhere else in September. It's already planned. Yeah,
so this
Eastern Europe.
meeting does not have to be in June, July, or August.
Right.
It could be September or October.
I don't know when your year is up, because it's the 10-month or 10 hours per year. So I don't know when that,
But when did your,
and we are gonna have,
you're thinking July, right? Because the board would have come into effect in July.
did you start in December, or was that not official, or like when did you guys actually?
It was July, Sharon saying.
It was.
I thought there was a group of you that started.
3 years ago, July, I think it was July of 23, I think.
I know myself.
It's July 14th.
Is it?
I'm sorry, July 14th is my last day here in North Carolina, so I won't be here at all. No July. This is Kevin, no July at all.
This board is supposed to have a clerk. And the clerk keeps up with all the time and all that, those kind of things. Mandy joined but there was a lady named Langley. And so she probably did not pass that information over to Mandy. But Mandy would really coordinate us getting the latest training and when it's offered also and how many hours each time it is. Because some of us that live in Raleigh or close to Raleigh could go to some of those trainings and it count. And if we let them know we're gonna have deaf people there, they will provide interpreters. So between what, I was gonna call you Dr. Business Hitch and what can happen in Raleigh, then maybe we could get our requirements.
This is Kevin. So I have been to a meeting in Raleigh and I sat in the audience and holy cow, those meetings were so boring. Those trainings were,
It's not like this. Dave will tell you when you go to these training meetings, it's all superintendents and all board members, and you're sitting out with tables. And there are many discussions. You have a great situation here where one person is telling you, but there they would interrupt the speaker and they would ask questions, and then you could learn as much from the people asking questions as you did the speaker. So I found Raleigh to be, it was, because you see what other problems are popping up in DPI public education. I did not know, they asked me, you remember when I was sitting there, you know, just following along, and then the lady said, well, Mr. Farmer's back there, he was here for 12 years, what do you think about that, Mr. Farmer? So I had to stand up and talk for a minute, but thank God, people, they were very nice to me.
is that the same training that I went to with you? Oh, is that right? No?
That was part of
Sharon, the one in Raleigh?
Eric overcame his shyness to do that.
So I went to a two-day training in Raleigh. But the same thing.
Well, Jerry and I were in a different one.
Yeah, different, but
Yeah, it's basically the same stuff.
Yeah, okay. So I put it.
I think that's the same one that I went to as well.
Yeah.
Management and roles of the board, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the same one. Kevin has not taken that training yet. Yeah, I already took the training. This is Sharon. I went and took the training, Wake Forest. School board training? Yes, it was school board training. Yeah, I was there with you, right? Raleigh? Yeah. Well, it's near Wake Forest Road, that area.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the name of the street was Wake Forest,
Okay.
something.
All right, so are we looking for dates now or?
It would be nice if we could, but
Sounds like everybody has.
do we want to do a little bit of training if everyone's going to be here for the one in June? If Rachel's available.
Is this after the meeting or?
I'm good for June, but not July. Probably not much. So.
At least get like a.
Maybe so.
Yeah. After the board meeting in June, I'm fine with that. Sharon.
Everybody else?
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just tell her to put it off. Or I tell you what, tell her to have the baby born a little bit early. Tell her.
Just tell her.
You get a fine.
All right, so let's, this is tentatively planned for a date in June. And we got one or two that will be here, but we're never gonna get all of us there, true? It's, unless you go September, October.
Yeah, September, October, November. Yeah, I could do that, but not September.
The other option would be if you guys need it before July 1. We could do Graduations on the 5th. We have 8th and 9th for mandatory work days. So anytime like that week of the 9th, 8th, 9th.
Of June.
I'm just trying to get you.
Yeah, so I fly back June the 8th, so I could potentially on the 9th if something like that was offered.
I could do. First.
I could do the 9th. If,
Yeah, I could do
if
the
you want me
9th.
to do it.
This is Kevin, it's fine with me as well. The 9th works for me.
It's a Tuesday, right? I don't know on my
Yes.
phone.
Yeah, it is a Tuesday.
Just 1 day training, or will we extend that to the 9th and the 10th this year?
June 9th.
Just the 9th?
If you wanted to try to get in the 10 hours, you could do partial day, like you could do a chunk of the day on the 9th and a couple hours after the board meeting on the 15th. Is it 15th? Yeah. So within that 2 weeks, you could offer
17th.
the 10 hours. I'm most concerned
Yeah,
about
that would
Kevin if
work.
he has 0 hours.
We get paid for mileage in that situation. The board paid for mileage, right?
I never got it. A year and a half ago, but I think that was a bureaucratic issue, but I still am waiting for my for driving.
So Susan.
So
Reimbursement.
Reimbursement. Yes. Yeah. Up to norm.
okay,
So we're saying, let's,
yeah, this should be good.
so let's repeat, make sure we all understand, June 9th. So we're saying
June 9th will be a
Yeah.
chunk and
Yeah,
then.
is that in the afternoon or the full day or?
5-hour type training.
I'm thinking, so if you're talking about 10 hours, if you want to do 4 hours after the board meeting in June, but take a break and do 4 hours after the board meeting in June, then we could do 6 hours on the 9th, do like, 8:30 to 3:30 with a lunch in there.
That's good with me. This is Kevin.
And that gets all your hours before July. And then you won't have to do it again for a while. But I also think it's twofold. It's not just the hours that you need the hours, right? But I also think it's the board coming together and making sure everybody's moving forward in the same direction and, are we all coming on the same page?
And that's on, wait, after the board meeting on the 17th and then the 9th, all day of the 9th. Okay. Okay.
Will you set up the times that you want? Just send me a calendar invite and I'll. Okay. And what I'll do is, if with your permission, I'll put together an agenda.
And if you could just make sure we could get interpreters this year.
Yes.
And if it's okay with you guys, I'll put together what I can propose as an agenda, to cover your training requirements. Okay,
So we can send out a memorandum, let us know the date, time that we agreed on here today, or these consensus. All right. Okay, let's move forward. Anything else? Well, I appreciate all the information you shared with us today and things on the financial part as well as HR. We still have a long ways to go to get to where we want to be. That's good for them. But we're working on it. So we're gonna move right on to the new business activities.
so we covered the retreat, training for the retreat.
Right. Communication policy.
Is it in our folder? Share.
This is not,
Oh, I think I have it. Got it.
so the policy that's in there is, NCSD's.
Where is it? In our folder?
There's a paper clipped chunk of papers in there.
So, if you want to explain about the SLPI, Morganton actually has the DSDHH does the SLPI for their Morganton staff. So I talked to the staff and DSDHH said they can also do the same for ENCSD and it's free. There's no charge. They do the assessment for all state employees. So trying to cover, I know that we were worried a bit about money, but that would cover that since it would be free.
But what you're saying is Morganton gets it free, and then when I said that Tony.
Yeah, we
didn't know
could as
anything
well.
about it, then Kevin says that Tony is brand new. But then when I tried to get it here, they didn't have assessment people. And when I tried to get it in Raleigh, the lady there said they didn't have assessment people, but she has worked very hard, and she says that she is able to get people to have it videotaped of our people here and then go to an
On
assessment
Zoom.
and then have it assessed for free, even though it won't be a one-on-one here or in Raleigh, our closest regional resource center. But she can pass all that by videotaping it, and then the person that assesses it for free will have about 2 or 3 weeks, and then it will come back and it will be assessed, and it will tell the level. Okay, she's gonna explain.
I can explain the
She's gonna
procedure, if that's okay. So I will reach out to Daisy. She's the coordinating. She coordinates the process. And she's actually close to replacing the other person. And I asked her, well, what's your procedure? Because I'm aware that Morganton has already started the SLPI for their staff. And we actually have 7 different divisions of staff who are trained. So they do interviews on Zoom, one-on-one, in person. It is remote. And so that way the person can click the topic, the person can have the interview, and then after the interview is done, they give the assessment to the coordinator, which will probably be Daisy, and then they will give that to 2 assessors who will assess the grade. And then the final grade will be given to the coordinator, and the coordinator will let the institution know the results of the level that is assigned.
So is this the SLPI or is it something different?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the SLPI. DSDHH says is they're not going to charge any state entity in North Carolina. There's no charge because they said no charge to state employees in general.
And now,
So this is Kevin.
This is what they,
This is what we know.
they,
We probably need to confirm it.
want to make sure.
Just want to make sure it's confirmed
Guys,
with Daisy.
when she done communicating with Morgan, see how they did that. Communicating with other person, like, but that's because he was new on the job. No, man. New director can't expect to know everything, that all the bells and whistles. But people in the field, that's what you got to flush on. Sometimes Lisa Brittle, who is their special in Morgan. In Wilson,
They don't have the deaf specialist is who?
got interim.
Who's the
Karen.
Karen, that's right. I don't know if she has SLPI training. She wants to take that training, but she is not certified. There are a few new people who have not yet taken that training. I think they did the training 4 or 5 years ago, so we'll have to ask for another trainer in that situation who's already trained. We have Charlotte, Raleigh, Morganton. Wilson does not. Wilmington has one. Oh, no. Nobody's in that position right now in Wilmington. But they're not trained. There's a new person here in Wilson who's not trained. Karen is new. She's a deaf service specialist. She wants to be trained, but she has not yet taken the SLPI training. Right, because the last training was 4 or 5 years ago. So you'd have to talk with Daisy to set up the training so that more people can be trainers.
okay, I'm just looking at Morganton's now, and I want to make a few comments about that. I feel that it's important for us at this school to establish that, yes, we, take seriously, I mean, this is a school for the deaf who should have the ability to sign confident with it. But I also have heard that the high standards in Morganton are really creating problems because it's just like, my gosh, do you really expect the maintenance department to be, I mean, that competent? In a perfect world, I think you do. But I personally feel that it is, yes, it's very reasonable to expect teachers after a certain point to reach a certain level. I think the advanced level is high enough. I'm seeing superior for teachers. I mean, I don't know enough about it to really be that strong about it, but I feel that we need to give a signal at this school that, yes, we understand that if you have a commitment to this school, then you need to learn sign language. Now, reading over comments that Cheryl sent in, which involve, possible legal issues, et cetera. My feeling is we can start now. And we can say, yes, if you're employed now, I mean, if it's a problem, if you're employed now, it can be starting with new hires. But I feel like this school needs to send a signal that we're serious about education for deaf students. At this school, it's got to involve ASL. I also have proposed, which you all can ignore, or not ignore, but disregard if you don't think it's a good idea, that it really should just apply initially to those people who have half-time contact with students, primarily in an academic area. So for example, I don't think Mandy should be under the gun to get this, I mean, hopefully she will get the skills.
I think she should.
She will continue attending classes, et cetera. But I think, as Cheryl pointed out partly in this note, that yes, you are going to have trouble hiring people if their job is primarily secretary, and yet they're in a position where, my gosh, they have to have these science skills. Hopefully, if they work here, they want the skills. But I feel it should apply to teachers and to certainly teacher assistants and a speech pathologist, a counselor, social worker, those kind of individuals. But even though obviously I strongly support this, I feel like we need to come in with some understanding of kind of what the market is in Eastern North Carolina, how difficult it is to hire teachers, et cetera. But I do feel that it is important to have something in place. It should, well, what I'm hearing is it won't cost us anything. What I was going to say is it shouldn't cost us that much, especially if we're not asking it of everyone. One more comment, Sharon, and I'll let you speak. Of course, deaf teachers need to be evaluated as well. So the whole thing of, well, we don't want to discriminate against deaf teachers. Of course not. They'll all pass it. I mean, if I were deaf, I'd be more than happy to take this test. But I feel that, yes, deaf people as well should be under the same requirement. So I'll stop and let whoever else wants to talk.
Okay, this is Sharon. So I look at the levels. I've worked at over 10 deaf schools and seen all of their levels. I've worked with them. This is very high. I agree. The levels at Morganton are very high. So superior is basically impossible to achieve. So that's unreasonable. I would recommend, as I said, I've been in direct contact, and there are 2 columns of direct contact. So for staff or assistants, all the people who have direct contact with students, for the first 2 or 3 years, intermediate is acceptable, with the goal of a 4th year advanced. So I think that those are good goals. So I think that we have 2-year goals and 4-year goals. And though I can modify that to say novice, for maintenance is novice. So for like Mandy, for example, novice. So being able to sign, do you need help? Like basic sign language stuff. I think novice is good. So for staff who do not directly interact with students more than 50% basic, I think novice is an acceptable level because they don't work directly with the students. Oh, hold on. My turn now.
I get it.
So the health is advanced plus. I think intermediate. So we can hold on that one until we can look and compare it with other schools. And then we can come up with the next recommendation for like health staff or like first 2 years and then at the 4-year mark goals, having the different levels. Because in my opinion, the Morganton levels are way too high. So can we hold this until next meeting? And I do agree, we need to require something, but hold the discussion until the next meeting.
The other comment that I would like to make is that if you know a teacher who is effective in the classroom, whose heart is with the kids, who understands basically those kids' needs, and sometimes people just don't have it in their hands. I mean, we've all, if you've ever taught sign language, some people are just, they don't have it very well. Yet sometimes those people can be effective teachers. And so it seems like there should be some
Discretion.
discretion or, okay, we're going to give you remedial help. We're not going to fire you. I just one quick anecdote. I know I say that often. Go find to my 45 seconds, but I worked at a community college in Chicago with a teacher who ran the math lab, and she could not sign her way out of a paper bag. She was terrible. She started learning when she was probably 55, and frankly, the older you get, the harder it is. And she was there just, and I just thought, God, those kids are going to hate her. We had an interpreter, the head of interpreters, that was a tremendously skilled signer. Interestingly, the students loved the math teacher because she cared about them. She knew how to teach them. I mean, they loved her. The interpreter, the head of the ASL interpreters at the community college was viewed as stuck up and cold, and the students couldn't stand her. And so to me, that was kind of a moment of, it's not all about science skills. Science skills are important, but I feel like if a teacher, you know, they're an excellent teacher, but they just don't quite have it to reach that level, I think there needs to be some flexibility, some kind of what do you call it? Not exceptions, but an extended period. Extended period in some way.
Okay, so just to add, what you've mentioned is very rare. And when I was growing up, I went to deaf school. I never had interpreters that we didn't like. Now I have, we never had interpreters in the classroom. Sorry, we had direct communication.
Yeah.
Now I know they have 3 or 4 interpreters in the schools. So we could, of course, had interpreters that were available, but from kindergarten through elementary through middle, we never had interpreters. We always had direct communication growing up. So what I used to do whenever I worked at the North Carolina School for the Deaf, when I was there for 15, 18 years, I was there, so very familiar with their style, and I've worked with both schools. So what they do there with the Slippy is if you don't need a specific level, well, then you have to sign a contract, a work plan, agreeing to take specific classes. And if you refuse to take the classes, well, then why are you here? And the classes would have to be taught by a native language user, someone who's skilled in ASL, an ASL teacher, and that's who they would hire, another ASL teacher. Some would learn fine from them in the beginning, and then their skills would go up and they would have to hire another ASL teacher. So it was a work plan that was established because of their level. So that's what I recommend we look at, and that's what I recommend we change.
Gary has a comment. It's very clear. When I got this, the policies you can look at, they're about a paragraph. This is about 6 or 7 pages in procedures. And after I read it, I called Sandy back and I said, has HR seen this? She said, no, but our lawyers have. I said, well, there's some problems here. And she said, where? I said, Appendix A on the last paragraph. And I'll go on down. It says employees are expected to achieve the acquired ASL proficiency level within 24 months. You got 2 years, that's it, of the hire. That means when you started, or the role transition. Failure to do so may result in mandatory additional training assignment. That's fair. Evaluation of employment. That means whether you deserve to be here or not. And then extensions beyond this 24-month period require specific Board of Trustees approval. I don't want to get in that as a board. I really don't. And so I said, Sandy, come on. And she said to me, Gary, I stood in front of all of our employees in the auditorium. And it was World War III, and it was directed to me and our board, because we came up with this. I said, well, what did you say? She said, nobody is going to get fired. That's what she said. I said, well, what you said and what's printed is two different things. She said, Gary, if they go to classes after they've learned where their level is, if they go to class like they're supposed to, now if they skip class, that's a whole different animal. And every time they're in the presence of a deaf person or child, they must try to sign. If they don't do one of those two, then yes, they may be. But if they don't reach that level, no, nobody is going to be fired. And I said, well, what you say and what you print probably needs to match up. So that's my conversations with them. I had a heck of a time getting procedures. I got policy every time I asked for it. But procedures was tough to get, and I did get it.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Sorry, Sean.
That's okay.
This could be a discussion at your retreat, where you could have a more meaty discussion on it. And if you want, like, I have some ideas that are coming to mind as you guys are talking that seems like it kind of synthesizes some of what you're talking about. So for example, what if upon employment, each employee had a plan, like focusing kind of on this work plan piece, a plan for ASL proficiency that could be reevaluated, and progress on the plan was part of the discussion, so I think there are some things that we could grab a hold of that everybody could agree to. But I think what you need is kind of a meaty discussion about, here are some of the options. So we could, if you want, we could make that part of the session at the retreat, and we could work through, some of the options that you've talked about, like softening some of the proficiency requirements, working through a plan, what kind of employment outcomes might there be?
I like that. I like that. Mrs. Sharon, yeah, I do. I agree with that.
How do you feel about that, Dr. Dolner?
Well, I just want to see what Cheryl says, but
You can, talk about that first. While you're thinking about this, I think we need to be cautious because I know they had their attorneys look at that. However, and I wish she was here to talk about it, but Simone actually spoke with DOA's attorneys. And what they recommended, they asked her, well, what do you do right now? And she told them that when we're in an interview, when that person comes in for an interview, they ask about one of the questions actually two of the questions on our interview questions are usually about ASL. And whenever we're done with that, we basically explain that they're required to go to ASL classes, depending on their position, 2 or 3 times a week. And the goal is to be fluent in ASL. When the only time that we've ever had an issue with teachers doing that, you're actually, I told you the last time that we had a teacher that she was here for several years and didn't make any progress at all in ASL. And classes refused to even use ASL, had an interpreter the whole time. There were issues in other areas as well, because as a teacher coming to a deaf school, if you're not motivated to learn the language so that you can communicate with the students, then you're going to show up in other areas as not being compliant. And that is what we have found. And so last year we did not renew a contract. But that person's attitude came out in other areas as well. It's the whole school, the whole area that we have to look at. And so, we make it known. And the mid-year and the end of the year, the staff right now this week, they've signed up to do their evaluation. and the evaluation is actually taken from the Slippy. And they actually, score it very similar to that.
Is this a training? Is that person training?
So that's what I was going to share. It's not, he has not gone through the training itself, but he knows what he has taught. And just like an instructor at a college.
That's a big difference though. That's a huge difference.
Well, wait a minute,
Say they know, but
I
they don't
gave
know.
you the opportunity to talk earlier, so this is my time now. So basically, we want to, when you're a professor and you're teaching a class, you know what you've been teaching them. You know how they're progressing. And if what you're doing is working, you continue. If what you're not doing in terms of teaching, if they're not learning it, then you switch things up because you know who your students are. Just like the ASL class last night, there's one community member that gets a little frustrated. And there's other ones that have been there every session that he's offered. And then there's some that are brand new. And so he has to adjust his teaching to work with everyone.
Differentiation of instruction, basically.
Yes. And you have to do a lot of repetition and a lot of moving forward, which is also when you're working with adults in any program, you've got to be able to differentiate your teaching to meet all the different levels. And he has students, well, the teachers are divided up into like beginning teachers, beginning signing, intermediate, then the more proficient signers are in another class. So a couple of teachers, they moved up into that next level.
I'm sorry, are you done?
I also want to caution, when you have 126 employees and you have 115 seats, we cannot change the requirements for any 126 employee. If we change the contract, they can file a complaint against the school. So we can't, change the expectations of their job, even to change the hours that they work. If I wanted to change the school day, for instance, from 7:30 to 3:30 instead of 8 to 4, I've got to give them 1 year's notice. 115Cs, we can do anything we want. But especially like in the elementary classrooms, we have a TA in every classroom. We have a TA for some of the middle school. We have one TA that's shared with the middle school and 2 that's shared with the high school because we have 2 different buildings and all the electives. And so there are 126 employees unless they've been hired since July 1 of this past year.
I think you could grandfather people in, and start with current employees, but I also want to comment because, I've taught a lot of ASL classes, and frankly, I do not believe I am at the superior ASL skill level by any means. And I think that the beauty of the Slippy is that you have people evaluating you that don't know you. If I know you, I know you're trying hard, I like you, I'm a good teacher, I'm going to try to adjust as much as possible. But if I'm evaluating you on an objective test, probably not the one to do it because I have some emotional involvement. And so with the Slippy, they're going to be evaluated like Sharon Lott could be evaluating somebody at the Kentucky School for the Deaf, and she doesn't know them. And so she's going to be able to do it in a way that's more objective. So I frankly don't understand the DOA issue at all in that, well, how do these other schools? I'm counting literally this took me 10 minutes to go through and find other schools for the deaf that were able to use the Slippy that are also under federal requirements. So to me, I just don't see that as an issue.
Well, our issue with this is like everything else. When you have 2 different staffs 126 is under these regulations and 115C is under this. It's very hard to like kind of try to do things in a fair manner, because like if we want to let this person in this category go, we don't have to go through X, Y, and Z over here like we do. I mean, everything, even their days of days off are different.
But that's why you grandfather.
That's, since we're gonna discuss this in the June 9th meeting, or whatever, that June 5th. Let's hold it there, rather than try to do it all here again. We're only at 11,
Can I just say one more thing? One more.
45 seconds.
I will suggest to, I mean, I have not been trained with the Slippy, but I would suggest, if you've not been trained with the Slippy, I would suggest that, a person could say, okay, I have a PhD, I know this, I have this knowledge. I think that people, you're expected to respect that person's field. If a person has math certification, they may feel that they are able to assess, but I think it's important to respect a person who has that education, and also the ones that don't. But I think the challenge is that, we're talking about fluency. We're talking about, it's 4 full days of training. So, if a person feels that they're not able to assess at that level, then I think it's important that we not allow them to.
So we'll continue this at the retreat.
I'm gonna try to get that baby held off so I can come in.
I do need to say something before we close. When we're talking about staff members, I'm sorry, but I'm very protective of my staff. Rich does a great job. He has over 14 years of experience teaching and planning and doing everything and teaching. He even wrote curriculum for Leaf Ohio State University, which is a very prestigious university. That's why they say it's the Ohio State. And so I think we can't just disregard all that 14 years of experience that he brings to the table. And so when we are speaking of our staff, I would hope that we can do that in a respectful manner, especially when this is a public meeting.
Thank you, Cheryl.
It's not his native language. And, he's a very nice person and I do like him, but I just see that he makes some errors, some production errors. And it's not his first language, it's his second language. So, that's the point, is that it's not his native language. It's good to have someone, but, I think he's okay. But for people who are trying to progress and be assessed, it'd be the same for someone using French or Spanish. You would have a French person to come teach a person
Can I
Spanish.
stop
don't
right
feel
here?
like that's
Because we are actually talking about a staff member's ability, which is an open session.
Well, and I don't know, but let me just weigh in on that. So I do think if there are concerns about then that is a closed session, to go into the closed session if there are concerns about that there's a mismatch between, the teacher and what we're trying to accomplish from a policy perspective and figuring those things out. So if there are concerns that need to be brought about someone's performance, those are absolute closed session issues.
Okay, so
Let's make sure we stay into the subject of what
I am.
Rachel.
Well, I'm not specific.
Because I'm,
But this is the subject.
we spent over a half hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah, this is very specific.
So I want to be sure that, and we said we're going to take this into part of the retreat.
Which is what I was
Discussion.
asking about.
Okay.
Okay, so for the retreat, for the June meeting, is a more specific proposal going to be presented, Sharon, or are you going to write something? Oh, it seems like we need something to vote on rather than just kind of talking about it. So Sharon, are you going to present something which is specific to this is what we can do?
Yes, I'd like to bring what something that we can analyze together. Maybe like a 2-year plan, a 4-year plan. So I'm not talking about anyone being fired, but I'm talking about a specific goal. What are our options? That is what I'm considering.
And may I weigh in on that for just a second? One of the things I think we would do at the retreat, you can bring specific plans, but I think the idea is that we would look for points of agreement on the board and figure out, what can we all agree about as far as policy elements, practice elements, that kind of thing, what it's gonna look like here. And then we can take that, and from that brainstorming, we may be able to come back in July with a policy or some kind of procedure that everybody's had input, that we've kind of negotiated with each other about, okay, I'm not okay with this, are you okay with this?
I just, I want to say this, the discussion is healthy, by the way. Because what we're trying to say, how do we make sure we're doing the right things for deaf students at the Eastern North Carolina School for the Deaf?
Respect as well.
The question is how to be competent. So we are agreeing on certain parts of it as to how the procedure process of it. So in the essence of time, to leave that where it is, but we'll include it in the retreat that we want to give this things. And thank you, Sharon, for all of the comments. All right. We're gonna move right on to the policy. Is that right? Are you on the
Yeah,
policy?
policies.
Well, second read policy. Yeah. So we did two policies.
This is the interpreter. Interpreters have to leave very soon.
Yep.
Other assignments to go to.
Yep.
So the heads up, we have to leave at 11.
So these are second read policies. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're correct. My bad. I read it wrong. That's my fault.
So we have to approve policy that's been reviewed by the policy committee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Someone should make that motion.
So the interpreter needs a smoke break.
Let's make.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
If no further discussions, I would like to make a motion to approve these items on the second reading, and it goes from 3280 to 2460.
Second.
Got a second.
Okay. It's been moved in second.
Got a vote?
All in favor from those opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. So those policies that are reviewed, discussed by the policy committee, we've just agreed. They can approve them and go forward.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
but looking at first reading, and not to usurp the time, but we do have a month to look over these and bring up questions. I move that we accept the first readings of the policies 4102 through 7820.
I say,
41. What was that again? 41.
4102.
Okay, got it.
So it's been-
1 through 12 on the agenda, I would say, because they're not continuous through the
So we have a motion, second to approve, all in favor, same sign, thank you very much. Unanimous. We move on to budget approval. Do we have a budget approval?
So, we were gonna talk about that. I know, we had brought it up during our pre-meeting. However, if you look at your line items, the only thing, besides, it's pretty much, this is how our budget comes. And there's, within each one of those categories, there's certain items that can be purchased with it. So you don't have a lot of flexibility. The flexibility comes in whenever you can use the lap salary. But you can't use it for reoccurring costs.
One time.
It's one-time usage only. So if we find out for the future that we can spend those dollars with the new budget, then we may want to look at how we use those. But there's a few situations where you can take like a percentage of this. We may not have to say we have it in IT and we've already got all of our alarm system. We have all of our 5-year laptops all replaced and desktops. And so it's gonna be another maybe 5 years before we really have to replace anything of a substantial amount. And so then we may look at, okay, well, we can take some of this money out of IT because we don't need it here. And we can, use it over here. But for the most part, the line items are there because those are the items or the areas that we've had to spend money in the past based on what DPI's expenditure reports indicated. And so this is like the first year, well, Susan came in February, where she's really been able to kind of like compare where their line items were and what we may or may not need. And she's still trying to kind of figure that out with the closeout of this year. That'll be her first closeout from year to year. And so, we can kind of put things in perspective in the future, but she wasn't, besides what's here, because this is how it comes to us, she wasn't sure what else you wanted done with that to be able to approve it.
We don't need to vote on that, do we? Or do we?
Well, for right now, I mean, the budget we're moving forward with.
Right.
Is still last year's budget.
Yeah.
So we don't even, we didn't have one all year. We don't know if we're gonna have one over the summer for next year or not.
So once we know that.
Then we could,
What I think you guys could do would be if you, Mr. Chair, wanted to accept a motion for a continuation budget that was reflective of last year's budget until you have any new information about appropriations.
Yes. Well, if that needs to be in the form of a motion, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Just will extend it.
Yeah, and I question whether it's needed that would to do it formally. But you have to operate. But we can go with this, it's fine. All right, so motion moved to go extended budget as we have it currently.
and I know LEAs have to do it.
Okay, fine. So all second, and all in agreement? Yes, thank you.
And this is where that state agency.
Yeah, and I think it's just, if the board is making fiscal decisions, you want the board to have some sense of approved, this is where
Sure, that's what.
to be looking at it occasionally and making some decisions about
Gave
approval.
her permission.
Okay.
Especially with whenever you're looking at that salary, like I know there's been decisions to use some of the money for switch it with some R&R money where you can extend the capital project money a little bit further. So I know that's been used. So it would be, we talked about the priorities being reviewed by the board and everything. So those would go hand in hand in terms of how you want that or how you would agree for that money to be spent.
And I know I keep adding to this, but I think there are so many good opportunities for rich discussion and training. I'm wondering if a short budget session at the retreat makes sense so that the
Yes,
board and Susan could have a discussion about how she's budgeting, how she's adjusting, what the finance looks like. To my mind, as a board, it's good for you to have some fundamental understanding of that.
especially a line item budget.
Yes,
To
yeah,
explain that,
yeah. So if we can, well, I'll include that on the proposed agenda.
yes.
This is Kevin. How is this a lap salary funding? How does that work? So whenever we take money from lap salary and move it out, we can't use it for what? And I would like to know more details about that.
That's what we're gonna do at the meeting.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
I'll make sure we include that in the discussion.
Sure.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a quick update on a conversation with the DIT. So you've got some issue, I'll be very, very, very brief because I'm very conscious of the time.
45 seconds.
The 45 seconds. So there have been some issues since you transferred to become a state department,
What is
a state
DIT?
agency, Department of IT, information technology.
Okay, so, yeah.
And so there have been some programs that you used as a school that are not able to pass muster on the state DIT requirements as far as the software and things like that. And it's intruding upon your ability to educate kids the way, using the programs you want to use. And that's problematic. To me, that's putting form over substance, right? And so we had a connection with an attorney in the general counsel's office at DIT. And so we're kind of alerting them to the issue. Here are some of the programs that we really need to be able to use with these students that we're not able to move since we've moved over. And there's nobody else that can provide them because nobody can meet your requirements. And so we have a conversation set up with that, and we think that we're going to be able to make some headway on opening the doors to software that's effective with kids that may not otherwise meet those state requirements. So that's just an update on that, trying to make some progress on that for you.
That's good. Thank you.
Do you want an example of what we're dealing with right now? So we have Edleo, which we have been working with for several months now to replace our website. It's, a professional design. It'll look very similar to some other schools. And it's actually the one that I believe, NCSD uses. It's much more user friendly. You can put a lot more information, a lot more pictures and so forth in it. But we received our design manager on April 19th. And she sent us a link that we could look at some samples and see which one we wanted to go with in terms of the setup design. When you go to link onto it, it's 403 forbidden. And so Charlotte Mecklenburg, I think Buncombe County, there's like a whole bunch of LEAs that use the same website designer. And we can't get the approval. They want something else right now to move forward with it. So we haven't been able to get the approval, and that's what we're waiting on right now.
Any other information or discussion for the regular session? Because we're going to go into closed session. We'll do that closed session for you, so only very session. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I move the NCSD Board of Trustees go into closed session to consider personnel matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A6 and 115C-321. Also to consider confidential student matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and the Family Educational and Privacy Act 20 United States Code 1242G, and to consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A3.
Do I have a second? All in favor, go to closed session.